This one should be 1.3. So that's an edited, kind of reformatted on which, oh, sorry, for 291, the travel ethics. Okay.
So that's where we're starting.
Good afternoon. Welcome into the Senate Committee on Government Operations meeting, Thursday, February 19th, 2026. Our first item up for consideration is H516, an act related to approval of amendments to the charter of the town of Essex. We took considerable testimony on this over the last week or so. I don't think there are any suggested amendments to it or any need to change anything. I would yield to Senator Bieholski if that's not true.
I think that's true. I mean, I'm hoping that going forward, when the town of Essex makes changes to their charter, they leave out the many references to state law. And if we were going to be making other changes, I would have suggested we pull those out here, but I don't know that we need to make just that change. And if people feel differently, I suppose we can do it on the floor.
Everybody comfortable with moving that along?
Yes.
We didn't make any changes to it as it came over from the other bodies.
And we did a great walkthrough yesterday. I thought we're in good shape.
Okay. Well, I'll entertain a motion then to
So moved to pass out H516 favorable.
good. Mr. Clerk?
Yes, Senator Clarkson,
Yes.
Senator Morley, yes, Senator Roholsky,
Yes.
Senator White,
Yes.
Senator Hallmore.
Yes.
Votes 5-0-0.
If you are so inclined, Senator Morley, this would be the bill that you. Yep. Would
The inaugural government
your
operations.
quiver and
What fun we'll have on the floor.
shoot the well, I'm hoping. we're
No,
not
it's
having any of that nonsense.
Go ahead. Doesn't matter.
All we do was fresh lady senator.
Oh, yeah. That was version,
Oh,
It was as passed.
yeah.
That's passed, but that's passed by the House.
okay.
We made no changes.
Okay.
That is correct.
So Senator Morley is the reporter.
Yeah.
Yes. And you should have been provided with quite a list, actually, of votes.
I do have that.
Oh, okay. You didn't. I have
No, I
it
do
for you.
have, thank you.
The only thing we didn't get was from the reporter from the other body, what the House vote
I'll get it.
was on in government operations also before.
I'll get it.
Okay, well, that was rightfully facile. Let's move to the next item for consideration, S291. Tim Devlin, our legislative counsel, will join us now. This is an act related to travel disclosures for legislators and certain executive officers. There is a draft. I have it at 1.1, Tim, but I could be incorrect. No, 1.3. So let me,
I have 1.1 also.
Yeah.
well, I don't think you've been provided with an update.
Online, you'll find we have the bill as introduced. And then we also have various drafts. I sent it to the committee assistant, but 1.3 is what I encourage the committee to discuss today. They're all essentially the same in substance, but the later iterations have been edited and then reformatted for clarity. So we can really work on any one that the committee has here. I can kind of just briefly explain any differences between. So whatever works best for the committee.
Would it be helpful to have this printed so you can refer to it, or you have it up?
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'm going to pull it out on my handy dandy.
So just again, because we haven't, I had some additional questions, to be honest about it, and I did speak with the AOA secretary, and I'm not clear yet where the dividing line, because the phrase in the the bill description says certain executive officers. I don't know which ones do and which ones don't. I know based on what I got for information from the secretary, some of them already do a lot of this. I don't know that it's as detailed as information as is in the bill.
Is,
And so I think,
is Sarah coming in or Beth?
well, I think we're gonna have her come in on next week to let us know. What I don't want to do is just continue to make people fill out forms that they're already filling out. If this is an enlargement or further information that we feel is necessary, I'm not against doing that either. As legislators, I can speak obviously from experience. The only thing we fill out every second year, so we come back, is income. And that includes spouses and or partners. But with there, and I guess there is a mention of stock or mutual fund holdings.
Yes.
But it doesn't get very specific. It just says if you have any, you got to report them. This seems to be, now this is again, this is for travel, so it is a little bit expanded scope. I don't personally travel on behalf of Senate at all, so I would not,
Don't you go to any conferences?
no, never had.
You may be the only legislator that that's true of.
Well, I don't necessarily think that's true, but
Ah,
it's just,
wow.
I don't have time. And then to go, again, for those of you that have employment in the other
Yeah.
months, you have to give stuff up in order to
That's
do
true.
these things.
That's true.
So
Uh,
that's where I am. It won't affect me one way or another if we
Yeah.
pass this, because I'm
Well, then-
planning on taking a trip to Disneyland and having somebody else pay for it or whatever.
no, but yeah, but these are serious trips for legislative conferences and for goodwill, for
Yeah.
economic development purposes. There are lots of reasons to do trips as a legislator that are completely justifiable.
The other, I'm sorry.
No, but should be accounted for, and people should be able to see who's paying for them and what those costs are. But I can't find this 1.3 because I don't see an email from you.
I apologize. It's
It's on the
posted on the committee website.
Oh, it's on the committee. Okay, great. Sorry, Chair.
So with that in mind, why don't we walk through the provisions of the whole? Is this gonna be, oh, it's an amendment. Okay,
And
but the original is included here, it's just the underlying portions under the amendment?
you'll have, so as introduced, well, everything, and then, so the amendment is just instances of amendment, really, inserting additional sections. So, both documents are necessary if you want to get the full scope of what the bill intends to accomplish. I apologize. For the record, Tim Devlin, Legislative Council. And Chair Collins, I'd be happy to initially address your question about scope of application.
Sure.
So the underlying bill, as introduced and really isn't modified by the amendment in this regard, will apply to executive officers, which is defined elsewhere in existing statute in the current, the applicable state ethics code. So we have executive officer, which means A, the state officer, or B, a deputy under the state officer, including any agency secretary or deputy, and a department commissioner or deputy. State officer term means the governor, lieutenant governor, treasurer, secretary of state, auditor of account, or accounts for attorney general. So we have these statewide elected officials and then their deputies. And then any member of the General Assembly as well.
So this sounds like the whole administration.
Not the, yes and no, the top tier of the administration is how I would describe it versus, the vast majority of employees in the executive branch would not be.
And to your knowledge, do any of them already do this?
I do not know, to what extent the governor's, deputies may or may not have similar disclosures. There's nothing in statute, I believe, right now for that. There could be no policies or maybe an executive order on that. Okay, I'd have to think about it.
Yeah.
Senator, we need to ask them. administration.
But just so I understand, this would not be saying if I was the Secretary of Transportation, if I went as the Secretary of Transportation to a meeting with other Secretaries of Transportation, that's not what we're talking.
That's what it's for.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, if
Business
it's, but if it adds my job,
Mm-hmm.
but if I got a paid, if it's, like if it's a job, if it's in the course of my job, like I guess I don't understand.
Sure, so.
Cause I was thinking about as a trip, like if I was going as the secretary, if I was invited to go somewhere as the Secretary of Transportation because they had some interesting new way of building roads in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
And I went to a conference there for a week that someone paid for. That's different than like my course. No, that I think should qualify, but if I went just going to a meeting with my job, you know, like that's,
So.
I mean,
it's
like driving up
travel.
to Stowe for a meeting.
yeah.
So it's travel that's taken in the official capacity of the executive officer or member, or that would not have likely occurred but for the member or executive officer status of occupying the executive officer's office. Then we have notwithstanding that will not apply to any travel that's paid in full by the member or executive officer themselves, the state, another state, or the federal government. And then, so that's pretty broad.
Yeah.
It doesn't really contemplate. I mean, this isn't whether or not it includes commuting.
Yeah, that's
you know,
kinda what I'm
that
trying to get.
I don't think it
that-
is.
The member would, or the officer would probably either pay for themselves or have, the gas themselves or the bus ticket or something like that.
But if
or
the state
the
of Vermont
could,
fully paid for it,
Then
That
that's
is
not.
different. okay, that I think is actually the key differentiator there, because if my job is paying me to go to do this thing, that's different than if I'm happening to be a person who my job might ingratiate someone to invite me to do something. Like I think,
So you know,
thank you.
That is the sort of critical piece, because even in an instance where, I drove to Smuggler's Notch, if my mileage is paid for by the state. But, I'm thinking about it from our sort of brain. If we are paid to go to conferences, not paid, but we are sent to conferences and, was that paid for by NCSL? Was that paid for by the Senate chamber? Was that, it's really about, it's not so much about what you're going for or where you're going, but who is paying for it, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't apply to personal travel.
Yeah.
Like I can take a vacation to Disney World, and I'm allowed to take a vacation to Disney World and I don't have to report it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's pays for it.
That's fair.
I think,
But so for an example, last year, I went on a dive trip and my dad paid for it. I do not have to disclose that.
no, but if someone you're doing business with here at the State House paid for it, that would be a different thing. If a lobbyist paid for it.
Well, that would, I believe, be illegal.
So I believe what we're trying to get at here is influence.
Yes.
And so it absolutely makes sense that any trip that's paid for during the course of, as a result of your work and is paid for by the state, that's part of your work, fine, that's included. But when Taiwan pays for you to go to Taiwan, that's a different thing.
That
Then
should be
people should know.
I think they should.
And so that when I raise the issue of opening having a representative in Taiwan for doing business, for representing Vermont companies in Taiwan, yes, it's true. I know more about Taiwan because of that trip. On the other hand, it's designed to benefit from her.
Yeah.
So, but the public should.
Yeah, I agree. The public should know. Yeah, so I think that's the important part of the bill, is what you're getting at.
I think the other thing that's important about the bill is that whatever you pay for doesn't need to be disclosed.
Right.
So if you buy all your food, it does not need to be disclosed that anyone paid for it. You don't actually have to track your souvenirs that you buy for yourself don't have to be disclosed.
Just the travel and hotel, right?
Well, I mean, if Taiwan paid for all your food, then you need to disclose that Taiwan paid for all your food.
Yeah, it does lay out if it is paid for by other people, that would.
I think that's the key,
include-
is
it would
influence.
exclude your, yeah.
there is a provision with reasonable particularity.
Yeah.
any expense payment or reimbursement received for all costs associated with the transportation to and from any destination, any food, refreshments, tickets, admissions, entertainment, lodging, and anything else of value, whether for cost or in kind associated with the travel. All of that falls under this provision, assuming we want to leave that provision in. I think that gets pretty grand.
Look, sorry, what section are you on?
It's on page 2 at the bottom of 17.
Okay, is this the new version? Details of
As-
any
This is
loans, what I have.
as introduced.
It's introduced. Yes.
As introduced, so it's not 1.1?
No, different document.
Which is
We're 291, right?
Yes,
It's so funny, I don't have that until,
it's on.
and I could not open my, iPad. So anyway,
Oh,
it wasn't opening, the committee page wasn't opening, nothing was opening.
But in your hand, Senator Clarkson, you have the amendment, which we haven't gotten to just yet.
I'm printing.
Got it, because this is about, okay, thank you.
I'm printing a copy for you.
The original bill on page 2 is where we're at.
Okay, I'm going to search.
Now, can I have a question with that section D?
Mhm.
If I were to tally all up and say, you know, my best estimate of all of these things is that we're using Taiwan. Taiwan spent $200 on these things. Would that meet the requirement, or do I actually need to itemize out one dinner that was $27.90?
I would say, although with reasonable particularity is not defined, it does imply something that looks a little bit more like itemization than just generalization.
Okay,
And particularly because it's asking for costs associated, which is a, you know, finite, term that, it's a particular inherent
okay.
number. It doesn't necessarily say, to the cent or anything like that. But, I think if there's ambiguity here, or if there's, concern amongst the committee that, somebody may take advantage or, otherwise try to read this against the current intent that the committee is giving it, that the language be changed. To be hyper specific about exactly what the committee wants. And I should also note that as written, if there is see if the travel is kind of mixed, that is partially paid for by the member, partially paid for by some third party that isn't basically governmental, state or federal that is. This bill doesn't make any distinguishing requirements as to, the disclosure would only have to disclose for the third party reimbursements or expenditures. It implies both. So personally,
So it sounds like some more clarity might be helpful in this section. I think about last summer, I was at the conference in Madrid. I did the 3 days of conference and then I stayed another week because I was already in Spain. But no one was funding that additional 7 days. So that's that sort of mixed travel. And I don't know that my intent was that the 7 days that I paid for by myself to have a vacation needed to be disclosed.
and right now, if you look at the top of page 3, we have subdivision B1F here. And so part of that disclosure will entail which elements of associated travel costs were orchestrated or paid for by the state, member themselves, or any other source. And so we have kind of the itemization in D, and then kind of a qualifier attached to each one of those items of that, okay, who paid for X, who paid for Y, who paid for the kind of thing. So, but it can be changed.
Okay.
yes, Senator Marlowe.
What if? Hypothetically, Becca goes on to this conference or whatever. and she-
We're gonna go to Denmark
Denmark.
for a conference.
Right. She puts the expenses on her own personal credit. And then she comes back and then she requests reimbursement. Sad.
That is
That's-
contemplated here, yes.
Yes, okay.
That's standard.
And I would have, yeah, and I've done that exact thing.
So
So.
Yeah.
this would require disclosure for not only out-of-pocket expenditures, but any items that are reimbursed as well as in kind.
Okay.
So, you know, no money exchanges at all, but you're still receiving something of value, then that would have to be disclosed.
So would that be like in the instance where?
Comping tickets, things like that.
Okay.
So the other thing that's a little different from what we are doing, we meaning the General Assembly right now in this bill, is where these are filed. The bill wants them to go to the State Ethics Commission. I know we have T.J. Jones in the room. We don't do that now. We send it to, well, the Senate Secretary's office, basically. And I assume the House sends it to those.
So we send it to the panel, we send it to the Senate Ethics.
So we file it with the Secretary's office. If someone wants to see that now, I believe they are able to. I don't think they need any particular reason or permission to go into the Senate Secretary's office and see what Senator Morley filled out was his annual income and whether he had stocks or mutual funds anywhere.
Well, they go and look at that.
Wait, what do you mean? It's fully online, it's public.
Everything.
No,
The database, right?
no, I'm saying right now,
Yeah.
I don't know that it goes any further than the Secretary's
No,
office.
no, they have to, they
Yeah,
have.
they do. Digger always does an article about what
Okay, well, maybe it's stored in the Secretary of State's office.
That I don't know. I think the secretary themselves, I think he has to
Secretary.
publish it somewhere
Okay, just
online. I
file
think at least the- Yeah,
All
but
right,
yeah, I know, it doesn't just end up in a drawer. They do put it online
okay.
and they have to by a certain
Yeah,
point. is my
it's certainly database.
So this would mean something different. I'm not suggesting it's better or worse or the same, it's just going to a different place. And I know TJ will want to weigh in on that. I'm also curious, the amendment includes a lot more details than the bill is introduced. For instance, it mentions more than $5,000. I don't know that that was in the original as introduced bill. I don't see it.
This mentions 10.
I'm working off the.
Yes, I'm happy to address that.
And there's also a $25,000 interest in investment funds listed in the amendment that's not in the other original.
So the amendment, happy to jump to that now.
Sure.
So again, this is draft 1.3, but it's the same in 1.1, 1.2 as well. The amendment strives to accomplish three different things. One is clean up certain Scrivener's errors that were introduced by, erroneously introduced, when added to statute. It was 2 years ago now. And that's to do with the terminology for disclosures made by officers for in office versus candidates. So to your question, Senator Collmore, we have the already on the books, 3 VSA 1211 having to do with executive officers' annual disclosures. And that is, that we do have a bunch of different kind of dollar amounts in there. Those are the disclosures that have to do with personal income, sources of, with the officer as well as their spouse, I think. And so those are all amounts already there. What this amendment wants to accomplish is basically cleaning up those references to candidates, because those are all there in Title 17, 17 VSA 2414. And so if you look at both these statutes side by side, they mirror each other. And one's for candidates, so people running for office, and once you're in office, you have to continue disclosing some of those certified.
I notice also county officer is listed in the already existing statute.
Yes, and that's not all county officers. That's defined in this chapter as well. It's in particular the high bailiff, the sheriff, the state's attorney. It does not include side judges or any member of the judiciary, probate judges, also county officials, and that's for constitutional reasons.
Okay. So does this proposed bill not include county officers?
The underlying 291 does not.
Perhaps it should.
Well,
What's it?
again, not taking, just ask your question.
No, I'm thinking about some of the things that have come up. I believe I am now aware of 2 instances where a sheriff, for example, was in fact not living in Vermont and was traveling, although this wouldn't apply because I think they were billing the state for that mileage. But I actually think perhaps it should apply to county officers, especially if all the underlying other stuff does. It would seem strange to have this be different.
It can be applied to anyone. Except for the judiciary
Yes, I know. Good flag.
or separation of powers.
What was that, you mean?
Yes.
Well, thank you.
And
Oh,
the,
wait. If separation of powers was being taken into consideration, it wouldn't then be doing the executive branch.
sorry, let me clarify, that's a fair question.
Because we do
for-
actually set the district budget.
Yes, the Vermont Constitution under Chapter 2, Section 30, and then reinforced by a 2009 case from the Vermont Supreme Court called In re Boardman, really sets administrative control as well as any kind of subsequent disciplinary action or really authority over disciplinary action. That over any members of the judiciary as well as attorneys, interesting enough, that the Supreme Court has plenary power over that. And so the legislature cannot dabble in that, simply not set by constitution. Yeah.
Yeah, we can figure out how to spend money for them, but we can't. Yeah, how to spend it.
It's,
Just please.
yeah.
The other piece of information that's asked for in, again, existing law is any loan valued at $10,000 or more that is not a commercially reasonable loan. I'm not sure I understand exactly what that is. I think I do, but
Is defined,
it is.
it's
Okay.
somewhere else in the piece.
All right.
Essentially,
Like, you don't walk to the corner and Slippery Joe gives you 10 grand and that's not a reasonably,
it's basically something that's not at the marketplace value. So, yeah, it would contemplate that. Something that where you're getting a sweetheart loan.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Sweetheart, fund,
Yes.
that's exactly what it's getting.
The
Are you on as introduced or 1.3?
well,
Well, I'm so lost.
So-
I now have it as introduced, so I found wonderful. I found your reasonable particularity. I did find that.
She's trying.
But now you're back to 1.3 and I don't agree.
yeah, well, you have 1.3, don't you?
I don't, that's my whole frustration. I couldn't pull
And
it
the
up.
printer's not working, so I could not print it.
And then my bloody iPad isn't working either. Okay, so you're looking at, it's not negotiations. It's actually.
Reading.
I said reading.
Oh, well, it's
I
bad.
don't know
I
if
should,
it's all,
my English family would be horrified.
don't be solved.
Isn't that a spare? and-
Yes, I know, I just don't spell check, Mr. Shaw.
So turning back to the other
Yes,
elements
please.
of the amendment, we have, so the first one cleans up those some existing disclosure requirements for executive officers. The second thing this does is it will alter the appointments scheme for how one commissioner, one seat on the
Right.
commission. So right now there is 7 members, and one of those members is to be appointed by the Vermont Bar Association. This suggests having the governor do that instead. Then, thirdly, this will insert some quorum requirements for the commission, ethics commission. And it mirrors language found in the Commission on Women, previous say 50-25, and essentially majority of the currently appointed members of the commission shall constitute a quorum. And once a quorum has been established, a vote of the majority of the members present at the time of the vote shall be in act of the commission.
So I can, if it's helpful for the committee, I'm going to just give some
Yeah.
context at the beginning of the session. The Ethics Commission reached out asking for some of these, some of them housekeeping, but also some of them kind of clarifying changes. And this was the only bill I saw as a vehicle for that because it was dealing with other disclosures and ethics
Yes,
and
it
stuff.
makes absolute sense to put it in here.
I just figured I'd give you the heads up as to why this was.
That's why it's, because you must have done this at the last moment then. Yeah. But
Yes.
I can't remember why they asked us to get rid of the the, Vermont bar. That makes total sense. to have the Vermont bar. Oh, TJ is there. Yes, but he doesn't speak for Paul and
That's true.
Christina. I mean, get rid of the bar. I mean, that seems a little odd to get rid of a.
You're
Oh, boy.
at 1.3 hours.
I have it. Brian. Thank.
It was on loan anyway.
Oh,
It's
$10,000.
on
Yeah, put $10,000.
No. Okay.
That loan was available to anyone.
Does it make sense to, invite TJ Jones to join us?
Yes, he's right here.
Right, that's why I.
Yeah, he's right.
Welcome. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is TJ Jones. I'm appearing today on behalf of the commission. Paul Ehrbaum, particularly since his regrets that he's not able to be here by himself. In sum, the commission supports S291. It's a good next step towards disclosure. It is consistent with and not as restrictive as most states, all of whom deal with travel in one way or another. The majority of states treat travel as just part of their general gifts provision. And so it's subject to all the de minimis requirements. And in addition to that, many states also have a supplemental disclosure that comes along with travel paid by third parties. So this is consistent with, and again, a little less restrictive than other states. I will draw several distinctions if the committee will indulge me, just in small ways that it's different that the committee may want to take into consideration.
Sure.
The first is with respect to the timing of the disclosure. Right now, the proposed language says that it will be within 30 days of when the costs associated with the travel are incurred.
Mm-hmm.
But the language is silent on incurred by whom, whether it's incurred by the payor, whether it's incurred by the public official. And that can lead to confusion and, in rare cases, mischief. Most states peg the disclosure to the date of the travel itself. And in fact, some states, including Massachusetts, require that the fact of the travel be disclosed in advance of the travel, and then the costs must be disclosed within, I believe it's 30 days of the travel itself. Again, just something the committee may want to take into consideration. Another area that other states have addressed is the situation where other people are attending on behalf of the state along with the public official. Again, because most states deal with travel in association with the gift rule, the travel disclosures apply to everybody in the state. Anybody who's subject to the ethics code will be subject to the travel requirement. Here, the committee has decided to limit it to elected officials and executive officers. And so it leaves a gap for those executive officers and elected officials who want to bring, say, staff or a member of their family with them. In these cases, it may behoove the committee to consider also the disclosure of anybody else who comes along with the person whose travel is being paid for. The third thing that the committee may want to consider is this would apply on its face to all travels irrespective of the cost. So imagine a scenario where an executive officer walks several blocks down to a community center where he receives a sandwich. And then lo and behold, while he's receiving the sandwich, it starts raining outside. And so the host says, "Can I call you an Uber to take you home?" Now, for situations like this, most states have a de minimis exception for travel to take into account things like this. Did you receive a coffee when you paid for your travel by yourself? So right now, the de minimis exception under the gift rules is $50 per occasion. So other states have used this. Massachusetts and Connecticut have this with regard to their gift rules overall. Maine has it specifically with travel. They have a de minimis exception that goes along with that. Again, something that the committee may wish to consider. Finally, and this is a small point, right now the language in section A2 suggests that you are prohibited from submitting a form if indeed your travel was paid for by another state or yourself. And even though it may not matter in the large scheme of things, the committee may want to consider allowing people who want to be fully disclosing to file these forms if they choose on a voluntary basis. So those are the 4 things that I asked the committee to consider with respect to the original draft of the bill. I'm also prepared to answer questions with regard to the proposals that were offered by the Ethics Committee with regard to the 3 other provisions that were added recently.
Sure, yeah, I think one of them was already raised by Senator Clarkson, that we've now left off a member of the Bar Association that was one of the things that's.
Yes, and this has been the subject of some discussion within the Ethics Commission. A lot of it has to do with the perception of the public. Right now, the legislative branch has appointees on the commission, but the executive branch does not. The Bar Association, I think, initially made sense. I wasn't a part of the original bill, but I was a part of the discussions in subsequent iterations of the Ethics Code. And a lot of the concern early on was to make sure that you had a sort of as wide a reach as possible into other organizations and other professions. Now that the commission is up and running, it really is focused largely on government and primarily the executive branch, but also the legislative branch. And so it makes sense to the commission to have all 3 branches represented on the commission. That's kind of the long and short of that suggestion.
Okay,
I don't,
let me just jump 1 second also. So on line 5 on page 3, is where we outline the members of the commission. And the first one in sub A says 1 member appointed by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. There's no requirement for that person to be a judge or a member of the judiciary, though. Is that not true?
That's correct.
So it could be anybody.
right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I agreed, and there's actually not a legislator that is identified. So I don't know what you mean, all 3 branches of government, because there's no legislator who's required to be a member, and no executive branch member. So I don't kind of understand the idea that you have 3 branches of state government here. There's only 1 mentioned.
Senator Bielski.
No, nobody else.
Well,
They're only
I've never-
visible officers.
She's got me looking at it more closely, but if I'm understanding, I don't know that because of what Tim had previously talked about sort of our inability to tell the judiciary what to do, they don't really have a stake in the commission. So why?
They have their own.
Right, they do their own thing.
Well, we do our own thing too, and so does.
Right, but we are also beholden to the ethics policy. They are
To
not.
your point,
But that's why we did the state
the-
code, they are.
They are not.
the legislature can appoint 2 people. So it's at the bottom of page 3, going to page 4.
I see appointed by, does not a legislative member
True.
required.
Says a former municipal officer.
And a former municipal, there are 2 former municipal officers.
Yep, that's fair.
How about 1 former municipal officer and 1 legislative alumni?
Oh,
I mean, you know.
Yeah, Tim.
Jim. What do you think?
TJ, I mean, like, we don't have one legislative member here at all. And. Okay, that long laugh. And you know, I value the League of Women Voters, but I mean, why are they here particularly? And well,
Certified public.
and a certified public accountant. I mean, really?
Again, I
I know we passed this a while ago, so.
yeah, and I was not present for the original wisdom that went into setting up the commission. It has worked very well with this currently with regard to the Bar Association. There hasn't been a member appointed to replace the previous member, so it's not like the legislature would be kicking somebody out of seat. And to be clear, the governor's appointment would not be somebody in the executive branch. It would be the governor making an appointment. Right now, the code would bar somebody from being who is a state employee or part of the executive branch from sitting on the commission. So it would have to be somebody outside of government.
Just that.
That perhaps is in the underlying law.
Yes.
Well, you ready to vote it out?
Well, it sounds like we might need some tweaks.
Yeah.
I think we need quite a few tweaks.
I'm
But
looking,
I
I'm
like,
looking down again, to see. So I see three, members of this proposed group who are clearly identified as having to belong to that particular group, the League of Women Voters, Certified Public Accountants, and the Board of Directors of the Society for Human Resource Management. Those are the only three, I believe, that are prescribed as members of this. Everyone else, now again, it would be with a great deal of imagination, I make this statement, but they could just be anybody walking along the street. One member appointed by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Hey, I see a guy out there, I'm appointing you. That's one. One member appointed by the governor. Okay, I knew John once upon a time, we'll appoint him, you know, so 4 of the 7
well, the others have to be municipal officers.
former.
Former, yeah.
So they again could be anybody now.
Yeah.
Am I making more of a big deal about this than I need to? I don't know.
Strong opinions.
I just think it really could be clearer about the composition of what.
I can tell you that
Go ahead.
the standard format for ethics agencies across the country is that they're appointed or at least vetted by a member of the government, whether in the legislative or the executive branch. And that takes 2 flavors. It's either that there's a straight appointment. Oftentimes, I'll give Connecticut by way of example. The governor gets more than one pick. The speaker and the minority leader of the House get one pick. And then the head of the Senate and the minority leader of the Senate get a pick. So that there's a balance among the people on the commission. The same is true in California, where you have minority and majority, and there's rules in effect that say no, the commission can't be made up of a majority of one party.
Senator Clarkson.
I would hope the ethics commission would be beyond party in the first place. I would boldly propose that we're having one former municipal officer, and obviously the ethics commission oversees municipal ethics. I would make the other one a former legislator. And then you'd have a legislator who has experience in the legislative world along with a municipal person. And then I would qualify the membership for A and D. That it can't just be anyone, that it needs to be a member of the bar. One member appointed by the Chief Justice could be a member of the bar. And that means they could be a judge or they could be a practicing lawyer who must be a member of the Vermont. And then, one, under, for the governor, I'd say, who must be something. And we should just figure out what would round that out. If we have a former legislator, a former municipal officer, a member of the bar, a woman from, somebody, not a woman, but a member of the women voters, League of Women Voters, and an accountant, and because that covers the money challenges. And it would be great if they had experience in ethics and money, but anyway.
So,
And then qualified D, with a governor would appoint someone with X experience.
Senator Bielski.
I appreciate that. And I hear TJ saying that the ethics commissions, as it's currently constructed, is working quite well, with the exception of this spot that's been vacant. And so I'm a little hesitant to go in and start tinkering with something that's working.
Well, maybe
If I
down
could-
to 3 people.
If I could just add one thought, and it's this: right now, the commission is not fully staffed. There's 2 vacant spots, and
Are fun.
as you probably know from appointing people to commissions in the past, that sometimes it's difficult to get people on board, and it's certainly difficult to get people on board in a timely fashion. And my experience has been, the more you make limitations on who's qualified to serve, the more difficult it is to find people who are willing to volunteer for the board. So if you narrow it down to, must be, and I'm making this up, a judge who continues to be a former judge who continues to be in good standing, well, you've limited the pool of people who are eligible to take that spot in the first place. And then you have to find a volunteer among that limited group.
Right.
I'm not sure I agree with that, TJ. I mean, the Vermont Bar has thousands of members. And if you just said, and should be a member of the Vermont Bar, that includes judges and all the lawyers in the state, and there are thousands of them. I'm related to 2 of them. And then the other one, D, with the governor, it would be great to appoint someone who had experience in the ethics universe. And I don't know how we would say that, but it would be great. Either, I don't know how we would want to phrase that, but somebody who has some experience in this arena. But I think that would keep it sort of with what those 2 areas of expertise. We want people with expertise. We don't want anybody off the street on the ethics commission. We want people who have either experience or expertise, it strikes me.
The other question I have, and maybe this is a question for Tim. I don't see any mention of per diems here. Is that in underlying statute somewhere else that these folks would all be at least getting the?
I believe so.
Okay. Well, let me suggest that we take our notes and take this up again next week.
I'm glad we abuse you so much more, like.
The chair.
Chair abuses.
I just want to ask you, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
and the committee, if there are points that between now and next week you would like me to work on updating so we have a new draft.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, some of it's underlying statute, so
Mhm.
I'm reluctant to change the $25,000 or more in individual stock holdings and investments and that kind of stuff, because I think it'll wind up getting more complicated than it needs to. I do think we need to talk to the administration. I want to find
Yes.
out what the landscape for them is right now in terms of being able to take a trip and not spend the next week filling out a form about where you went, who paid for it, how much you ate. I don't know how complex, how deep we want
How
to
do they
get.
report? How do they report currently?
Is that fair?
That is fair. I'm wondering if the 4 points that were brought up by TJ, including the de minimis exception.
Those are good ideas.
That's fine.
Okay, I will.
I have those too. I wrote.
Okay, were there any other points that we have discussed that we are feeling like you'd like an update for next week?
Senator White.
Yeah, so are we looking at the entirety of the bill or just the amended sections?
I'm open to doing an update. In fact, I'd prefer to do any updates altogether.
Yes. What I will communicate is I really appreciated TJ's suggestion around you guys were talking so quickly, I missed maybe what was suggested, so if you didn't say it already. The de minimis amount, yeah. I like the spouse's staff piece. I thought we had talked about that last time too.
Raise the questions.
Okay, so I would like that in the bill because honestly, if I'm bringing my husband to Taiwan, I think people should know.
The extra
You know?
travelers, I say.
I think that's important.
I would agree if Taiwan is paying.
If Taiwan, well, exactly, if Taiwan.
That's school, but all of this
Yeah.
is school.
And
somebody
then
else paying.
I do not have
You don't have.
TJ, I don't have a consideration around the members of your group, your commission. I have no strong feelings. But I do think I've had a recent change of heart around the ethics commission and the value of the ethics commission. And I am saddened that there was not other components to help potentially support the ethics commission this year. And I realize this may be our last vehicle to do that before crossover. So I wanted to open that conversation as well because, and I don't mean change of heart, like I've come to think ethics are important. I've always felt ethics are important. But I was recently faced with a situation where I thought I had the opportunity to put forward an ethics complaint. And it turns out that due to the composition of the ethics commission staff, they aren't doing it at all. And I hadn't been faced with that reality yet. And now that I fully understand, based off the testimony we had earlier in the year and that experience, I'm very concerned. So I do want us to do something to support the ethics commission if it's possible this year, because there's a very large problem with ethics in our state that is being unaddressed. And I had not experienced, I had literally put forward something that was just so blatantly a problem.
Mhm.
And no one can investigate it. It's completely outside of bounds because the commission can't do anything.
It's more than.
And now what do? I just live with the knowledge that we can't have those questions investigated or answered. And that frustrates me deeply. So I would like us to explore it further if we can this year, that's my moment. I needed to say.
I'd like to take Paul's testimony and actually act and include in this their financial requests
Yes.
and their staffing requests.
Exactly.
Because I think until we do that, it will remain moribund. And
Exactly.
we cannot afford to have an ethics commission that is basically stymied and inactive.
And they had, and I will say, you have continually brought up the point, and I guess I hadn't articulated in my mind that there were situations that were being stopped, and then I was faced with one, so that was disappointing.
As I'm sure will come as no surprise to anyone at this table, I fully support.
I'm shocked.
I would even go so far as to say that I would support rolling back the date at which we would allow the ethics commission.
You'd be moving it closer to. Okay. I would be very open to that, especially with the investigative powers piece. So I just want to put that out there. I know that that's a different can of worms from what we're talking about in the bill, but
It's
not like our
another
last-
committee, that's for sure.
But this goes to what the chair and I have spoken about, because I take it on when the big bill gets to the appropriation, for we're going to send a letter supporting
okay.
the ethics commission request. But I'd rather embed it.
You'd rather put it in here
with
have it go there,
positions
have them
that
take
Paul
it out.
asked for. Right, TJ, what? And I have Paul's letter here somewhere.
Okay,
I can absolutely support that. Would the committee like the 4 points that we discussed, the de minimis, kind of those positions? Was there anything else in the next draft?
No, just those things.
I only had 3, and I know there was a 4th. I have the consider that something should be followed within 30 days of the travel being completed. The extra travelers.
Yep.
And the de minimis amount. What was the 4th?
Huge members.
Prohibitive.
The fourth one was the small one that would allow people who wanted to voluntarily file those reports that aren't required to simply allow them to do that. Right now, the language says you may not.
not. It should, could say are not required to.
Oh, The other question that I had that was in my notes was whether we would want this to apply, as do our other ethics things, to those county officials. So that is, in the bill as introduced, it is out of line with the rest of our disclosures, and that it does not include those county officers.
I would include the county officer.
I would agree.
So we'll have to have additional witnesses.
We'll see how that
Do that.
And I also jotted a few notes that the committee was discussing. Do we want any, does the committee want any changes made to the granular disclosures? The conversation of itemizing.
I would wait until we have testimony from the administrator and then change it. So why don't we, for this next draft, why don't we see
Yeah,
what we've actually heard and weigh?
well, and what I am thought I heard, but TJ, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that we are actually being sort of broader and gentler than
Yeah.
many states.
More states
Yes.
are.
Yes.
Yes.
So I would be at this point more comfortable staying with what we have, given that many other states are much more restrictive than this. I'm trying to get us closer to like a B on ethics, not a D.
Yeah, we began with an app, so it's only.
Like I said, I'm trying.
And also the item of when it comes to mixed travel, disclosing everything or just what was paid for?
I mean, I think that would be just what was paid for, not by. Like, so in mixed travel, like the example I gave where someone paid for me to go to a conference and then I stayed an extra
And then you
week,
kept
paid
going.
for all my own stuff. I don't know that 7 days that I paid for all my own stuff needs to be disclosed.
No, it doesn't, but travel, if it was paid for by someone else, needs to be discussed.
And then,
And-
the, matter of documentation.
Receipts.
Receipts, well, how else would you?
I mean,
Done.
in
It
every
doesn't require that.
other instance, you write it down on a piece of paper and we trust you that
Yeah.
you wrote it down.
I'm big into trust.
Yeah, so
I also
would
think-
we require this? We wouldn't require this.
This does not require.
Yeah, I don't.
TJ,
think we-
do other states require receipts?
It's not so much that they require receipts, but there is an extra check on it. And that's done in my familiarity 2 different ways. And the first is that the payer themselves would have to vouch for whatever was submitted. But the second way is similar. You attest to it under, I swear under penalty of
Oh my
false
God.
statement that
But that's what we do in our current financial disclosures. Yes, we
Yes,
sign it
yes,
and attest under the pain
and-
penalty of perjury.
The attestation and signature required is part of this bill.
I'm sorry.
Self-attestation.
So you mentioned Connecticut and California. How many other states do this?
Mass,
I can't give you an exact number, but the vast majority of states have some type of disclosure with respect to travel.
Okay.
And again, I should flag this as well, that the concern in some states is slightly different than Vermont, because in Vermont, the Ethics Commission doesn't have jurisdiction over lobbyists. And so in states where the Ethics Commission has jurisdiction over lobbyists, there is heavy, intensive reporting with respect to this because of the concerns that lobbyists who are there at the Capitol every day will take advantage of lax rules. And so those are the most onerous of reporting requirements.
Okay.
so you and I were the only people here when we began this.
No.
Do you recall conversation about why we didn't include lobbyists?
Well,
Nope, me neither. So maybe that's something to explore, but not to include in this draft, but certainly something to explore. But I think county officers, yes. And I think the membership, we should continue to discuss and maybe get a recommendation from Paul or a current member to discuss what we've just suggested, which is a member of the bar for A and a municipal officer and a former legislator. And the change would be in G, instead of another former municipal officer, have a former legislator.
But we're not gonna do that with this.
No, but those are my suggestions.
Have what you need?
I think so.
Okay.
okay, committee. So we'll close the chapter here for a bit. I don't know what day works next week. We'll figure it out. We do have a busy week already next week as we get closer.
I now have all three versions of this. I'm so
Hang on to them. Next week, there will be a fourth.
So are you all set? Tim?
For this, yes.
Okay,
Huh?
so we will, do folks need a 5-minute break?
Great idea.
Okay, we'll be back with, the next item up for consideration.